As we begin Lecture 3, we're going to discuss the major influences on the Founding Fathers. To do that, of course, we bring up the Bible. Last week we looked at the study that Dr. Lutz and Dr. Heinemann did. We found that 34% of quotations from our framers came from the Bible. Secondly, we have human authors that are most quoted. Baron Charles Montesquieu, who was a French Catholic, was quoted 8.3%. He was the most quoted human author. His main work was The Spirit of the Laws, written in 1748, and his main contributions to the framers' thought was that God is the author of all law, physical laws and moral laws. And because of man's sinful nature, man departs from God's laws, and civil government is necessary to keep men within the confines of God's law. But in doing that, civil government is populated with men with the same sinful nature. So to keep government moderate, it is best to separate government power into three branches. This is where that concept comes from, the legislative, executive, and judicial. It's also found in the Bible in Isaiah 33:22. Christianity makes government more humane. So he seasons this whole formula together with Christianity, because that's what keeps us humane as humans. Our second most quoted human author here is William Blackstone at 7.9%. He was an Anglican, which was the Church of England, or Episcopalian as they were known of in the colonies. His main work was the Commentaries on the Laws of England, and the contribution to the framers' thoughts was a better understanding of this English common law and how it was applicable in the American courts. Judicial restraint was another topic that he discussed at length. Judges do not make law. They merely discover and apply the law. A great way to understand that is referees. Referees do not create the rules, but they are bound by the rules, and they are to apply the rules to the game and to the players. He came up with three categories of law in his writings, the first of which was the law of nature. And we get that from Scripture. When he created man and endued him with free will to conduct himself, said Blackstone, in all parts of life, he laid down certain immutable laws of human nature, whereby that free will is in some degree regulated and restrained, and gave him also the faculty of reason to discover the purpose of those laws. Secondly, we have revealed law. Now, this is because of God's compassion and mercy. We can't understand everything by looking into nature because nature is fallen. So God gave us His revealed law and made it plain and simple. He, that is God, gave us that in the Bible, such as the Ten Commandments. The doctrines thus delivered we call the revealed or divine law, and they are to be found only in Holy Scriptures, said Blackstone. Thirdly, there's municipal law. This is man-made law, and that is adopted by the civil governments, but it must conform to the higher law of God, said Blackstone. Upon these two foundations, the law of nature and the law of revelation, the Bible, depend all human laws. That is to say, no human law should be suffered to contradict these. Next in the line of human authors is John Locke. John Locke was raised in a Puritan family. He was basically Christian, though he was not entirely orthodox, and his main works that the founders cited were the first treatise on civil government, the second treatise on civil government, and then some would even consider him a theologian, as he wrote the essay concerning human understanding of St. Paul's epistles by consulting St. Paul himself, and also another work on the reasonableness of the Christian faith. His main contributions to the framers' thoughts were that government is established by covenant or contract of the people, and this was ultimately based upon, and I'm giving you a direct quote, that paction which God made with Noah after the deluge, and that's found in Genesis 9:6. And that whosoever sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed, for in the image of God made he man. God has ordained the law of nature, to which all human laws must be subordinate. And thirdly, dealing with this law of nature, he discusses our God-given natural rights, and those are chiefly life, liberty, and property. Now we move on to other thinkers of international law, such as Grotius from Holland, Pufendorf from Germany, or Vattel, who is from Switzerland. They stress that international law must be based upon revealed law and the law of nature, again echoing Blackstone's sentiments. Our founders also quoted Roman thinkers, Virgil, Cicero, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius. These are those of which stress the virtue of the old Roman Republic and also the disciplines of that republic against the later excess of the empire. Discuss the political philosophies that sprang from these religious views that we discussed in our last lecture. The reliance, as an example, upon the laws of nature and nature as God. And the sources of this concept, first and foremost being the Bible. Founding Father Noah Webster summed up the definitions of these terms as the 10 Commandments written by the finger of God and the underwritten laws on your God-given conscience. In other words, there exists a higher law than the law of man by which man's law must be judged. As a matter of fact, the Declaration of Independence makes absolutely no sense unless there is a higher law than man's law, or the king's law at that particular time. Natural law is also predicated upon the existence of absolute truth. The point is that natural law limits government authority because, as we move into our next point, we have natural rights. So law is created literally to protect your rights. You can see how the law of nature would then limit an out-of-control government that would be encroaching upon your rights. As we discuss natural rights, we find that they are rooted in the law of nature. That's where we can find them. That's where we can look to. The source of natural rights, of course, is God. We have God-given rights. And this is based on man being created in the image of God, possessing human dignity. And this is also based on the negative commands of Scripture, thou shalt not kill. Thus you have the right to life given by God. He protects it by giving that law, thou shalt not kill. Natural rights existed as a limit on government authority. Remember that concept. Now, our natural rights consist of, but they're not just to be contained in, the following points. Number one, life. This is basic for exercising all other rights, which would include liberty. Liberty is defined by Noah Webster as the freedom to do what is right. Webster then defines right as according to the will of God. So liberty is not just the freedom to do as you please, but rather true liberty is the freedom to choose to do what is right according to the will of God. Property. This is not just material gain. This is a natural right, but it's not found in how much stuff I have. Property was viewed as a means of productivity by our framers and also by God. That's why He gives it and gives us the right to it. Property was viewed as an extension of the person. As an example, I work all day long mostly on a computer. That computer is my property. It's an extension of who I am, and therefore it helps me to do more things, to be more productive. Lastly, we come to the pursuit of happiness as basic natural rights. This included property, but it expanded upon that, and I believe Jefferson wanted that, and that's why he chose those words. This can be equated with the pursuit of virtue. Virtue is the only basis for genuine, lasting happiness. A non-virtuous person is not going to last long in happiness.